All right. Happy Thursday, everyone. Can you hear me? Okay, let me do one clap if you really love Memphis. All right. Let's do that again. If you really love Memphis, let me hear you clap once. All right. Thank you. So I'm Patricia McKinney, and I have the pleasure of serving our members through our Small Business Council, and I'm with the Greater Memphis Chamber. It's such a pleasure to see each and every one of you here today. Our chamber is made up of 90% of small businesses. So small business is a big deal for us. So through the chamber, we have the Small Business Council. And I just want to appreciate the co-chairs of the Small Business Council, Meredith Hennessy and Larry Robinson, as well as our think tank. They work tirelessly. They always are looking for ways to serve. So we have Gwendolyn Tucker. We've got Dottie Summerfield Justy in the room. She might be out there. Oh, hey, okay. And we have other think tank members. Do you know that these individuals are always looking at news and seeing what you guys need to know? And they email me. I don't even know if they sleep. Do you guys sleep? So we appreciate their work so very much. And at this time, I also want to thank the partner for our masterclass series, Society of Entrepreneurs, Pearson Crutcher. Thank you so much for your partnership. We're joined at the hip, and this has been a great series. This is year 2 of this. So thank you so much for your partnership. And the fuel behind the Small Business Council, our sponsors, Independent Bank and Wyatt Tarrant and Combs. So with you, Independent Bank, Susan, I don't know whether you want to want Jeff to come up. Okay, Jeff Kimbrough with Independent Bank will speak to you, and then we have Thomas Friday with Wyatt Tarrant and Combs. Thank you so much, sponsors.
I gracefully say thank you. Good morning, everyone. Jeff Kimbrough with Independent Bank. It's great to see all your lovely faces today. Thank you all for showing up. Thank you to the Chamber, Society of Entrepreneurs. This is always a great event. Year 2, actually. Independent Bank, we are a locally owned bank here in the Memphis area, fully capable of handling all of your financial needs. And we look to assist you in any of those as you see fit. So with that being said, my ask today is that you at least contact one of us. We have a few of us in the room. Contact us. We would love to connect with you and see what we can do to assist you in your business as well. So thank you. Sit back. We have a great speaker today, so I'm looking forward to hearing what's shared. Thank you.
Thomas Friday. Perfect name for this week, right?
It's almost Friday. As Patricia said, my name's Thomas, but only my mother calls me that. You can call me Tommy, and usually when she is saying that, I'm in not a good spot. So, like I said, my name's Tommy Friday with Wyatt Tarrant Combs. For those of you not familiar with us, we're a regional law firm with 5 offices across Louisville, Lexington, Nashville, Memphis, and one in Indiana as well. I primarily specialize in business law, but we work with small businesses throughout the region and know how vital they are to the communities that they're a part of. So if you have any questions or want to find out ways that we can help your business succeed, feel free to reach out, and I'll hang around in the lobby upstairs. And as most of you who have been to these before and heard my spiel, my line is we can help you with anything as long as you're not in handcuffs or getting a divorce. No family law and no criminal law. So thanks, and look forward to speaking with you.
All right, thank you to our sponsors. Let's give them another round of applause. All right, so you all are here for masterclass, and so Susan Stephenson will dive into strategic planning and engagement, but I'm going to toss the baton over to Larry Robinson, who serves as our co-chair of the Small Business Council. So class will be in session once Larry goes ahead and does his magic.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Well, it's not even afternoon yet. Good day, everybody. Man, what was that? Good day, everybody. All right. So listen, today we're going to move from reaction to intention. As you know, small businesses are having its challenges. We're having our challenges, but yet and still we got to make it through. So you'll hear clear strategies today. We got a powerhouse that's going to be speaking to you. And so I want to make sure everybody has their notes in between their salad bites and sandwich bites. I want you to make sure and jot a few notes down. So we're going to speak plainly, and I want you to make one strong decision before you leave today. So let me ask a question. Who's written a strategic plan? All right. Who revisits it at least once a quarter? Okay, we got a few. All right, another question. Raise your hand. Who feels like their business is running them more than you're running it? More hands. I'm in that. So I'm a small business owner as well. I own Kazuki. And so we literally at times feel like the business is running us. And it's a real challenging time. So listen, you're in the right place. We're definitely in the right place. So let me introduce our guests. We're gonna bring in a pro, somebody who has actually scaled a business from $0 to almost $1 billion in assets. So Susan Stephenson, once she swore that she would never be a banker. Then she co-founded Independent Bank, made Tennessee history. She became the first woman in our state to serve as a bank chairman and CEO. Independent Bank grew from an idea to 9 locations and over 200 team members. Like I said, over $1 billion in assets. $1.8 billion. Oh, okay, all right, one more time for the people in the back.
$1.8 billion.
There you go, hey, more than $1 billion. All right, so this isn't luck, that's strategy and timing. She also brings a civic lens from New Memphis Women's Foundation, Greater Memphis Chamber to National Civil Rights Museum, St. Louis Fed. Translation, she knows numbers, the trends, and the people behind them. When Susan talks about moving from survival to sustainable growth, lean in. She's built it, and she's helped others do it. So without further ado, Susan, welcome. All right, so we can.
Hi, y'all.
So listen, we're gonna jump right in.
All right.
So, starting with the basics.
Okay, ready.
What does the strategic planning look like? And what does it mean for small business? And how is it different from planning to survive?
Okay, y'all, this is one of those times where, first of all, I have a microphone, so anytime my voice is amplified, you're in trouble. I apologize in advance because I get wound up over this topic particularly. But I want to really emphasize something to all of y'all. I'm very old. This is my 46th year in banking. And I have written a lot of strategic plans. And I want to just comment on, you asked the question, what's the difference? Strategic planning is very different from planning your annual budget or your quarterly budgets or your next steps. Strategic planning is when you step back and take a look at really understanding where you are today and where you wish to be in the future. And I can't tell you how important it is if you have a real desire to create and build something that is better than it is today in your business and your company. This is so important, and it's so challenging to do it. By the way, I want everybody in this room to understand, I've been an entrepreneur myself. I have started a business, so I understand the tyranny of the urgent, the thing that is right in front of you, the thing that is very difficult to avoid, the thing that you are really struggling, you have to deal with it. It's the house is on fire or your hair is on fire, and both of them require water, and you've got to do something. But I want you to understand the importance of that, having that moment where you help yourself and invest in yourself and your company to step back and think about not just the next few steps, but the steps that happen after that. And there are a lot of things that are involved in doing that. But when I tell you that it is the equivalent of setting out on a sailing ship without a sense of where you're going to go. You will be at sea for a very long time if you don't have an idea of where you're headed. So your strategic plan is your map to the future, and it is a critical piece of your success. And I say this to you as a person who every year, as we step back and start to imagine where we are, do the honest assessment, do the pieces that you have to do, think about what you have to do, to envision the next piece of your roadmap, where you're going next. It is so difficult to pull yourself back from everything that is on your desk and on your phone and on your iPad and in your computer at the moment. But I promise you, it's the valuable investment that is going to make it possible for you to achieve your ultimate goals. Great companies have great strategic plans. I know that is, it's a sad truth, because nobody gets excited about this, with the possible exception of the people who consult on it. Those people get really excited. But I would just say, for me, it's understanding, and y'all need to remember that difference that I was mentioning. Everybody needs a plan. Everybody needs a budget. I'm a financial advisor. I would never tell you not to have both. But I want you to understand that your strategic plan should inform both your plan and your budget. And the success that you have, the way that you accelerate your performance, is really dependent on your ability to have the marriage of those two things, both your strategic plan and your budget and your annual plan and your quarterly plan. And I know that we have a great process, because these are questions that I think have been sourced from both the think tank and members of the Small Business Council. Mm-hmm. So there's some great questions, and the off button just got to periodically punch me so that we stay on course.
Well, I'm gonna ask you. So a lot of small business owners,
right?
What are the key components of a good strategic plan?
Okay. First of all, everybody in this room has access to the internet. So I'm going to tell you that you can plug in strategic plan to your search bar, and you can get a ton of helpful input. But I'm going to tell you a couple of things that I think are really critical about that. Sort of my starting points for what you need and where you ought to go. These are the hard-earned lessons of a person who has since more than many of you have been alive, been writing strategic plans. So first thing I'm going to tell you, you need to have a vision and a mission statement. You got to understand, what is your big idea? And let me be, there are, by the way, plenty of great companies that have merged their vision and mission statement into one. But at the heart of it, a vision statement is your big, overarching, will never change, where am I going and what am I doing? It's the why I have this business, what this business is seeking to accomplish. And your mission statement is sort of the bones of the how am I going to do that. So whenever you do that, people get really caught up. First of all, we have been crafting a mission statement for our company. This is our 27th year in business, actively 28th year since we started our company. And we can always perfect that mission statement and that vision statement. So please don't lose yourself in the attempt to get too perfect, because then you'll be stuck on the mission statement and you'll never make a step forward. But you do need to do it. You do need to have a vision and mission statement. The second thing that I tell everyone they need to do before you start a strategic plan is you need to have a realistic assessment of where you are today. And this is the moment where there are lots of folks who say you need to do a SWOT analysis, by the way, SWOT, strengths, weaknesses, threats, and opportunities. That's a great way to do it. Whatever you ultimately use as your framework, before you start your strategic plan, you need to have an honest assessment of where you are today and what resources you have in place. It is. Oh man, if you're not acknowledging the truth of where you are, then you're not going to be able to make the steps forward that you need to do. But you also need to understand your limits and your and the constraints. When we started, everybody in this room, sorry to iBankers, will know that I have my original vision statement was global domination. That's kind of we're still working on it, by the way, and we've kind of honed it from a little bit more. But years ago, I had a great mentor who was actually a part of my first career with First Tennessee / First Horizon company. And he was a guy who said, understanding what your resources are is the equivalent of understanding how you're going to fight the battle. If you need $1 billion to achieve your objective and you do not have $1 billion, then you've got the wrong objective. So understanding that moment where you step back and assess where you are and what resources you have available is really a critical part of the process. So in other words, it is having that clarity, having the ability to look at where you are and what you have will make it possible for you to create a plan that's actually achievable and doable. But, and I say this is the last thing, because I'm giving you the three big ones: vision, mission statement, honest assessment, SWOT analysis, however you do it, of where you are and what your resources are. And then finally, plan to measure your performance. A plan to measure your performance. And let me say something about measuring your performance. We have a strategic plan that has 3 to 5 year goals in our company. And every year I produce a report for our board of directors that says, here's where we started the year, and here's where we are now, and here's what we're doing to try to accelerate our growth. And what I learned along the way, I don't know if everybody in this room, this is that quiz where I was a teacher before I was a banker, so I can see everybody's looking down now at their food and their notes. How many of y'all have heard of the concept of a SMART goal? SMART goals, okay, right. Okay, so SMART goals are specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. Because having a goal that is I have a goal, but I have no specificity around the goal. First of all, you're never going to know if you get there because it's, ill-defined, et cetera, et cetera. But what I note in a lot of small businesses is that we are very good at getting our ideas about here's where we are, here's where we want to go, but we have a poor process of understanding where am I going next and what am I doing? So I'm going to just tell you that one of that idea of being, and particularly specific, achievable, and time-bound are the really, did I do it? Did I achieve it? But that idea of having a sense of, global domination is sort of a lifelong goal. so you eat the elephant one bite at a time. So we're a long way from achieving that goal, but we're on spoon number 7 million, so we're making progress.
So many of us, you're at 1.8 billion in assets.
We are at 1.8 billion in assets. Yes, we are.
So a lot of us can't relate to that, though. So I'm gonna take you back. I want to take you back to year 2, because I don't know if you saw 1.8 in year 2.
Oh no. We were actually. It's really interesting because we set our first goal was to achieve 100 million in assets. And our first, I literally have a little glass monument on my desk that marks the day that we did it, because we gave ourselves 18 months and we actually did it in our 14th month. So one of the things that I would tell you though is that had we not.
Hold on now. I was going somewhere.
Okay.
All right. So in year two, when you couldn't see 1.8, when you was looking at that 100 million, who are those vital members on your team? Who were you looking to help inform and at least assess your thoughts and your vision?
Okay, the answer is obviously we have, my partner and I have always been at the table to start this process, but a strategic plan doesn't work unless it includes and engages everyone through some process. So in our company, I want to be really clear, when we started our company, everyone's name fit on a Post-it note. And I mean the little ones, not the big ones. And so as we were going through the strategic planning process, what I really want to say to everyone is that the success of our process really was a byproduct of the fact that we engaged in smaller groups with each of our team members, and we were pushing information up from the bottom and down from the top. And the magic is the moment in the middle when the two things come together and there's clarity around that. So don't ever think, a strategic plan conceived in a dark room without engagement. And we have first of all, a budget process that engages every different group in our company in every different place in every different way. And we talk about where we are and what we're trying to achieve and where we're trying to go. But what we also need in that process is the message that comes up that says, really great idea to try to achieve this, but the market doesn't want it, or our competitors have a better product, or we are off the mark in terms of what is resonating. And that message needs to come up while the big ideas are coming down, because the two things have to be able to work in community with one another. I will also tell you that what you don't know until you talk to your stakeholders, and your stakeholders are more than just your team members. They're more than just the people on the inside of your company. Your stakeholders are the people on the outside of your company as well. The people who are going to consume your product, are going to invest in your company, are going to be partners with you as vendors or resources, or the people who are going to be in your great big huge circle, that diagram of intersecting circles that has its perfect sweet spot when all of our efforts move together in that center of that Venn diagram, which is such a wonky teacher thing. So sorry. But anyway, that moment where the collective stakeholders find that magic of what is important to each of the stakeholders that makes you accelerate your performance forward. It's your magic. And everybody in this room needs to understand where their magic spot lies. What you do better than anybody else, what makes you different from your competitors, what is creating your real value. And it's not just what you do, but as Tommy said a few minutes ago, he doesn't want to see me in handcuffs or in divorce court. He wants to see me when I need a business application. So it's not just understanding what you do really well, but understanding what you are not able to do or what you're not about.
How often should a small business person revisit their strategic plan?
Well, I could tell you that if you read it every morning before you went into the office, it would not be a terrible idea. But what really needs to happen is this. We revisit, our strategic plans are written in increments, but we adjust them annually. So like we have a 3-year strategic plan, and annually we're going to make adjustments in that process as we go forward. But what I would tell you is you really ought to be doing your adjustments when there is a change in the macro environment, it is an unavoidable thing to reassess your strategic plan. And everybody in this room looks like they lived through COVID because you're sitting in this room. So I just want you to understand for just a moment the idea of what you have to learn about a strategic plan when you have to pivot, when your world is reinvented. So I say sometimes there are outside forces that act on you in a way that necessitate a reevaluation of the plan. Things that are epically beyond your control, from a worldwide pandemic to a shift in your marketplace that's a more local shift in your marketplace, to a challenge with a supplier, to an understanding of availability, to a shift in what people are. So for me, I'm going to tell you, small business people better than anybody else are attuned to what's the vibrations in the earth beneath your feet. Even if you want to ignore them, it's like you've got that detector that's sort of the earthquake tremors. You feel them before you want to, always before you want to, and really before a lot of other people do, because small business people are so close to their actual experience. And so what I say is, when you start to feel the tremors beneath your feet, be honest with yourself and don't defer it. But I also will tell you that you ought to have a regular, I think 3 to 5 year plans are the right increment. I'm better with 3 year because 5 years, I don't know, I'm old and it's a long time away. Sort of in cat years now, I'm sort of feeling that acceleration. But I also feel like that revisiting of it is important, and you should do it at least annually. But I would tell you that you're going to be smarter and better if you do it even more frequently, if you take it out. It's not a bad idea to take it out, like on some marker. I have certain things that I do at the beginning of a quarter and the end of a quarter, and it's not a bad idea to find a rhythm that works. That's a good one.
Give us an example of when you had to make a pivot, not COVID, let's say in that first 5 years, and it worked out well. Something when you had to shift and it worked really well when you were in that small business phase.
Okay, I'm going to go a little bit further than 5 years, but I'm going to go, we were less than 10 years old. And y'all remember, first of all, my timing has been extraordinary. 13 of the 15 largest financial disasters in history have occurred since we started the bank. So, woohoo for us. Got great timing. But we were at the beginning of the Great Recession. We had a moment where, actually, I was serving on the St. Louis Fed board. And so I had gone to a Federal Reserve meeting in St. Louis, and the economists there had kind of come back right at the very beginning of the Great Recession, before Lehman failed, before the apocalyptic time with mortgages, before the world melted down all the way around. And we had a moment where we recognized that that the business that we had, the traditional banking business, was going to be under stress. And for us, banking business is really a marginal business. We operate on narrow, thin margins, the gap between how we can gather our resources and how we can distribute our resources, and the margin between those two. And it was very clear to us that there was going to be a major shift in what happened with margins in the world, and it was going to be a protracted time. So we said, our business, our core business, is going to be under pressure, it's going to be a challenge, and we need to find a way to reposition ourselves. So we gathered our team together and sat in a room, and we put every single, and I want to emphasize, we put every single crazy idea on the board because, we were using magic markers and stick it to the wall things, the flip charts. We put every single crazy idea that we could think of on the board. And we concluded a couple of things. We said we need to find businesses that are different from our core business, and we need to identify people who can partner with us in those businesses. We need to enter other lines of business that we have not been in to generate fee income. And we need to be willing to recognize that there are certain things that we have always done that we can no longer do well or do profitably. So we had to step back. So that meeting that we had literally led to our company entering a couple of new lines of business. We bought a business that was in a very different space, risk-reward space from ours, traditional business, that we've now owned for over a decade that has been incredibly profitable. We entered the investment management business. We entered the mortgage business. And we identified an opportunity to help municipalities who were having pressure with cash flow because people couldn't collect taxes effectively. And we developed a business to work with municipalities that allowed us to help them through their cash flow cycles. And those businesses allowed us to navigate the Great Recession. And I've got to knock on wood because I'm the most superstitious person in the world. And I am. There's a tiny little piece of, I hope it's real wood on this table. So I'm knocking on it. And y'all think I'm kidding. I'm deadly serious about this. So we actually navigated the Great Recession and have had the best years of our earnings in history because of the choices the pivot that we made and the choices that we made at that time.
Okay, now I'm going to take you back to strategy. Where did strategy inform those pivots?
I think the first place that one of our big strategies was to always perform we have ability in the banking industry to benchmark ourselves against everybody because the government produces information about how we're doing. And we've always had a commitment to form in the top quartile of all financial institutions. And so when I say in the top quartile, we try to get to a way that, because, there are a lot bigger banks than us. There are 4,473 banks in the United States, and we're now the 705th largest bank in the United States. Wow. From zero to number 705. Anyway. But that position, that challenge, one of the things that we said was we wanted to benchmark ourselves in a way that sort of took out the size challenge that you have. So we created a benchmark that was a relative, how do you create return on your assets? So what is your return on the amount of whatever you have, your resources you have to pray over? And so one of our strategic endpoints was to maximize our return on assets. And when it became clear to us that management that strategic component that we had established was going to be under pressure, we literally said, how can we create a greater return, a greater profit in our organization? So the first place we did is we went back to the strategic measures that we'd established, and we said, this one's going to be in trouble if we don't do something different. And we said, okay, let's go do something different. Then we also had another strategic endpoint that was a benchmark to marginal performance, the gaps that you have between the interest that you're able to earn and the cost of your funding to do so. And we saw pressure there. And so the other strategic endpoint that we used that really drove us into this new place was that our core businesses were not going to produce that marginal return that would allow us to continue to be a top performing institution. And so we made a decision. So those two, written years before we could ever have known that there was going to be a Great Recession or COVID or, I don't know, or the World Trade Center attack, or all the things that have happened before. We wrote certain strategic endpoints that were sort of guiding stars. So that gets back to that specific and measurable thing that we talked about. If you have a true north, if your compass is set and there are markers on that compass that tell you where you have to go and what you need to do, then you're going to recognize when there's an issue with your ability to perform. And so that really did make it possible for us to say, we know we're not going to be able to achieve this with our current plan, so we need a new plan.
Wow. Okay, so strategy basically belongs on the calendar.
It does.
And in the budget.
And in the budget.
And if it doesn't change how you spend time and money, it's not a strategy.
It is not.
All
And
right.
if you're not being honest with yourself about that's a really, really, he just said in like 10 words what I was saying in 250, so kudos to him. Basically, if you're not serious about your strategy and not doing that test where what you're investing your time and money in is not actually propelling you forward relative to your plan, then you're not legitimately following a strategic plan. There's no question that if there's not a marker that says, I say I want to achieve X, and oh, by the way that I'm investing my resources reflects that is what I am in fact doing, then you are not following your strategic plan, or you have a bad strategic plan, or you don't have the resources you need. All of those things are a marker for you. And listen, this is not a graded test. Nobody's going to ever know. This is that back to being honest with yourself about where you are and what you're doing and how you're performing. Because the real test is what it produces in terms of value for you and for yours.
All right, so now I want you to turn to your neighbor, like church. Turn to your neighbor. Turn to your neighbor and give them what you're going to do, that one thing you're going to do differently in regards to your strategy. All right? Because it's important. You realize this is a lady that has built a business from 0 to over $1 billion. 1.8 billion to be exact, almost 2 billion.
Almost 2 billion. We're on the way.
So,
and if anybody wants to help us, I'd like to invite you to the table. Yes, really, I am. Both people, talent, resources, and opportunity, yes.
So, as a CEO, you deal with, or as a leader of a business, you deal with the daily grind. And you in that daily grind and long-term growth sometimes is challenging. How do you not burn out or lose momentum as you're going through that daily grind? Because it's a long way from 0 to 1.8. So how do you keep that momentum up? How do you deal with it every day when, sometimes you got to pivot and so on and so forth?
Well, some days are better than others. But I think here's a question, and this is Larry. I'm going to just say, first of all, do you really love what you do? And do you love who you do it with? Because let me just tell y'all, I legitimately love what I do, and I legitimately love the people that I do it with. I mean, so when I think about how you avoid the tyranny, let me tell you, I was on vacation. I got back last Sunday from a long trip. And by Tuesday of last week, if you had asked me that question, I would have said, I don't know. I got no idea. Because life is really, nothing is even. The waters are sometimes smooth and the waters are sometimes choppy on that proverbial sailboat that we got on at the beginning of this talk. But what I would say to you is that if you first of all if you're doing the right thing, if you're doing something that is the right fit for you, and you're doing that right fit with the right people and the right tools, then you're going to have, even while you have those moments of, oh man, I'm not going to be able to go home tonight. I'm not going to be able to eat dinner. I'm not going to finish this project. I'm not going to be ready on time. That person is going to be the death of me, or I may be the death of them. Option 2. All those things are going to happen. But if you're in that, if you can find a way to pull yourself back, it makes a huge difference. And I'm going to say, all of y'all are leaders of your small business, and most of you are influencers in that process, no matter what. One of the things that you ought to ask yourself is, how can I help ensure that the daily grind does not grind down our entire team, that we don't let it grind down each other, that we identify ways to be the people who lift each other up and find a way to help navigate that process. Because there are going to be days where it's really, really hard. I would be lying to you if I did not say there were days when I was filled with anxiety and great doubt. It's hard. It's hard to run a business, and it's hard to run a business over an arc of time. And it's hard to replicate that DNA, that little tiny spark, your why. Why are we doing this? Why did I start this? What is it that matters about this? Why did I think it was important? When you have those moments where the why feels really hard to capture, you've got to go back and remember, what was your why? Why did I do this? Why am I here? Who am I here to serve? What do I hope to accomplish? What are those things? And that pullback, it's not going to be every day awesome, but it needs to be set up so that you remind yourself regularly of the why. Why did I start? What is it that matters? Who does it matter to? Who are the people I'm doing this for? Because at the end of the day, there's not just back to that great companies have great strategic plans, but great companies also have great intention around their why. I remember what matters. I remember what I started with and why. And if you're going to be a person who sustains and creates a business that grows and creates value for all of the stakeholders, then you're going to be a person who's important in that to re-energize yourself, to remind yourself to do that. And there has to be though, you can let yourself run your day-to-day operation to the point that your day-to-day operation runs your business into the ground. Or you can have a moment where you pull back and make the time. It's just like a great relationship or anything else, where you invest the time in the component pieces that make it work, that make a difference.
So I could be like the great Huetta Dudley and have a business that is just blowing and going,
up.
just going gangbusters. When it's going good and you're scaling, what's the right time for a leader to start delegating leadership roles and responsibilities so you can further focus on the scale up? Because she's the next billionaire.
Yep. Well, first of all, forgive me, Father, for I have sinned. Delegation is a really, particularly when you love it, delegation is an interesting and important thing. I, by the way, work with the smartest people, the most committed, the most engaged. I mean that in my industry and in most others. And what I've learned over time is the moment of that, when you have your clarity about your strategic direction, your why, and you've passed on that why to someone else. We used to say all the time, there are a whole lot of ways to get to Nashville from Memphis. Actually, I don't want to go to Nashville. So there's a whole lot of ways for people from Nashville to get to Memphis. And all those different ways that people can go all achieve the same objective, right? And what happens with delegation, honestly, is that you learn that the thought you had about how an objective or a process would be executed or achieved it's done differently, and it's done better, and it's done, and it levers all the vision that you had at the very beginning becomes, it's like yeast in a bread. It causes the whole loaf to rise. But it is always, you need to always be creating, everyone in this room needs to be creating the person that is their successor all the time. All the time. Because you can't stop being your position until you've created the person who's going to be the you so that you can be the next thing you're going to be. So that delegation piece is really important, but there's a part of this that I would just say that's really also important, and that is there's a DNA to everybody's company, the best part of it that you want to replicate over and over again. The piece of it that is if you lose everything else, you want to keep it. And as your company grows, you want that piece of your DNA that is critical to get passed on and passed on and passed on. And it's going to get passed on and changed in a way that's the same way that genetics works in human history and in life. It's going to get passed on in an important way. But in our company, we have a commitment to heroic service. I mean, heroic. I don't mean the kind of, like, that was really nice. I mean the kind of thing that you pick up the phone and tell somebody about, that it was so good that I'm going to talk about it later and tell people about it. And if I were going to say to you, whatever your little piece of your DNA that has to be replicated, as you delegate, make sure that everybody understands, do it the way you want to, be whatever you want to, make it happen in a new and different way, but don't lose that core little piece of who we are, because if you lose that, then you start to lose who your company is and what your company is. And there are great companies, by the way, that have done it over time. I mean, there are really great companies that you can look at, you can read about, you can see it, who are hundreds of years old or decades old, and they've managed to sustain that over time. And I would look at FedEx. What a great story in a company that had a brilliant core idea that has evolved and changed and become many more things. But at its core, it has sustained that over time, even as it's evolved. And its global impact now, everywhere in the world, you go all over the world and there's a FedEx is on the ground, literally on the ground in front of you represented, and never lost that core DNA of who they are, which is what has made a great company, a really incredibly great idea into an incredibly powerful company.
So switching it up a little bit, we're in the age of uncertainty. We got a little bit of uncertainty going on right now. What would you tell a leader about still planning and strategy, planning for the long term? Because long-term planning is still important. But people may feel hesitant because they don't know what's happening tomorrow. So what would you share with that person?
I literally, from the beginning of this company and all the way through those 13 of the 15 largest financial crises, would say a couple of things about what you got to commit to in this planning process, who you are and what you are. First of all, when I tell you that you need to make investments in everything, I want you to know that I start with there's a pyramid of investing in yourself. Have a moment where you're investing in yourself. You need to find the way to what feeds your capacity to be better as a leader, as a person, as a part of your community. So I would say, in these uncertain times, start with stepping back and saying, what do I need to do to be better myself? I want to go back to that I always believe I do a lot of research to understand what's going on around me all the time. And everybody when I do a talk, I usually start with here's where we are right now, the facts. Take a look at what's happening in the economy around us. Take a look at what's happening in our community. Take a look at what's happening in your business with your competitors, with the people that are part of your ecosystem. And really get back to that concept of how do I fit into that, and where do I level set in that ecosystem that we're talking about. Because there's a part of all of us that is resistant to change. I mean, there's no question. It's a whole lot easier if everybody would just leave me alone and let me keep doing what I'm wanting to do. But that whole comment that I made earlier about that clear understanding of here's where I am today, and here's what I have as a tool or a resource, and here's where I personally am today, and here's where my team members are today, and here's where we're trying to go. And honestly, be willing to say, I need to make a change. I need to make a subtle adjustment. I need to make a massive pivot. I need to reinvent myself. I need to reinvent my company. I need to find a new place to be. The guy who sold wagon wheels had to make a choice when the world around him changed. Wagon wheels were a really big deal until there weren't wagons anymore, right? So there's this moment where you have to recognize we're in a point right now, and this is something I keep saying to everybody, AI is changing our world. I mean, literally changing everything we do. It's changing the way our customers behave. It's changing the way we're going to move into the future. It's changing the way that we need to build our teams. It's changing the way we need to build our process. So one of the things that I would say is there's a moment of just clarity about that. Where am I today and what's on the horizon? And if you're not saying to yourself, the world has changed and is changing, you're doing yourself and your business a great disservice. But back to that concept of the planning in this turbulent time, one of the things that I would say to you is be excited about that next step that you're going to take forward. And if you can't get excited about the next step that you're going to take forward, don't take it. I mean, that's the honest truth is that if the world has changed from where it was and where you wanted it to be going, and you're poised to carry on down that path with your wagon wheel, I wish you Godspeed, but I'm not going to be optimistic about where you're going to land. But if you're willing to recognize that I have a skill that I learned when I learned to make a wagon, and as a result of that skill that I learned, I'm going to transfer that skill into making tires for this newfangled automobile, then you're going to have a great future. And I tell you that I have a really good friend in Memphis who was in the cotton business. And he was in the cotton business, and generationally, family was in the cotton business. And the world changed in the midst of the Great Recession, and there was lots of consolidation in that business. And the business that had built and sustained their family for generations was basically disappearing. And so they sat in a room and they said, what did I learn from what I did for 4 generations in this business? And they recognized that one of the things that they did extremely well was logistics. They knew how to move cotton bales around, but moving cotton bales is the same as moving other things around. And so they literally reinvented a company that had generationally been in the cotton business, and now they're in the logistics and investment management and real estate business. And they are their 2.0 version of their company is even more successful than the business that sustained them for 4 generations. So you have to say to yourself, where is my next step? And is my next step legitimately taking me the place that I want to go?
Now, we have a banker in front of us, so small businesses, we want to know about access to capital. But before we get there, I have to ask you, in addition to Gwen Tucker's book called The Lead, what other things are you reading as a leader?
Oh man, I read the most. I'm gonna give you my list, and I actually have a list that I gave several years ago to the Society of the Entrepreneur, and I've added a new book to it, by the way, which will sing to the heart of one of my coworkers, Catherine. It's called the Checklist Manifesto.
Yes.
If you haven't read it, read it. Great book. Reminds you of all the things. Having a checklist, y'all. I have a list on my desk every morning, and I am not a natural checklist girl. In fact, to be honest with you, it's a habit that has been painful to adapt. But I would tell you, there's a book called, it's by Simon Sink, and it's, understanding understanding your why? I can't remember. Yeah. Anyway, so that's a great book for strategic planning. Good to Great by Jim Collins is a great book. The Blue Ocean Strategy is a great book. The Art of War is a great book. If you haven't read The Art of War, go read it. It was written by one of the great military minds of all time, Sun Tzu, and he was, and it's, generations old, a great book. And if you think you're not going to see stuff that applies today, you're gonna read it and go, oh man, this guy's in the next room. He's writing stuff about us. Anyway, great book. I like to read books that are, one of my favorite, you're gonna love this, one of my favorite strategic planning books ever is The Lorax by Dr. Seuss. And I'm not kidding about that either. Or Yertle the Turtle, another great strategic planning book.
Okay, I didn't know you were going to give us a library.
Yeah.
I didn't know you were going to give us a library.
I could go on
wait a minute,
forever.
so don't go on forever. So, last question is, I'm going to go back to access to capital. As a small business person, how important or how much relationship should we have with our financial advisors, our bankers, to position us better to access resources from independent bank, actually?
Yeah, I mean, like y'all are just tossing a softball up here, and I'm just like, I'm getting ready to, I'm winding up.
Okay, all right.
Okay, first of all, you need to have a great relationship with your banker partner. And I'm going to say that as a person who I've worked for great financial institutions, and I'm going to tell you that the thing that you need to have as a small business person is you need to know your banker's name and they need to know yours. And if you don't have that, go find it. You need to have a person who is going to be an advisor as well as an advocate, as well as a sounding board. A person who's going to help you lay out before you. Everybody can't be great at everything. And if you have a good financial partner, they're going to help you look at the things that you may be a weakness for you. They're going to remind you that you need to understand, what does your cash flow look like? Everybody's seasonality. Wouldn't it be great if you budgeted and everything happened in 1/12 of a year? Like if expenses occurred 1/12 of a year in a month, and if all your revenue occurred 1/12, it would be so much easier to planning. But everybody's business has some cyclicality to it. Everybody's business has some unevenness to the way that the pattern of behavior. But you need to have a financial partner who helps you understand what your business operating cycle is, and how you can navigate that cycle, and where you're going to need, where the ebbs and flows will be, and how you're going to get through that. that partner is really important to you. You're going to have a person who's going to say to you, recognize everybody loves to take care of our customers, but we have to acknowledge that there's some of our customers that are more profitable to us than others of our customers. You need to remember that you are a for-profit business. Most of you are a for-profit business, right? Well, some of you are nonprofits, because I see a couple of nonprofits in the room. But the point is, you still are accountable for here's how much money came in and here's how much money goes out, and I've got to make sure that the number that comes in is not smaller than the number that goes out. So you need to have help. You need help navigating that. That understanding having someone who can help you look at sort of the inputs to help you see where you are profitable. What are your business lines that are the most profitable? What are your products that are most profitable? Where are the places where you lose money? Where are the places, and by the way, there are things you need to do in your business potentially that are not going to make you money. They may even cost you a little bit money, but they feed the opportunity to do the things that make your money, right? So you have to understand, what are those? Where are they? How do you navigate that? So you want to have a person who helps you with that. You want to have a person who, when you have a big opportunity, can help you evaluate that opportunity. Is it really a big opportunity? I have a chance to buy something that's going to make me another business, or I have a chance to pick up a line, or I have a chance to do something. They're going to help you navigate, how do I finance it? How does it work? How does it fit into my business? What will I need? What resources do I have? Where are my gaps? All of those things come from your partners, your advisor partners, and your financial institution needs to be a huge piece of that puzzle, helping you make those choices and those decisions. And they also need to be a person who reminds you, because while you're doing all the hard things you're doing every day, like running as fast as you can to make sure you're filling your orders and making your payroll and answering your telephone and returning your 10,000 emails that you've gotten over the last 15 minutes while you've been sitting in this room, you need to have someone who can literally say to you in a positive, helpful way, let's look at that together. And so if you don't have that, find that. And if you do have that, tell them you're glad.
Fantastic. Now, I know somebody has some questions. So we got room for a couple questions. Any questions?
Yertle the Turtle.
The book about the turtle.
Yertle the Turtle, also by Dr. Seuss. You're going to find, actually, I'll be honest with you, I was reading those books to my kids when I was reminded of the incredible wisdom to be found in Dr. Seuss. And y'all think, and in all seriousness, like a master class and some really smart tools. Yertle the Turtle and the Lorax, two of the best. But I could go on about children's books forever.
I have a question, yes. So thinking precedes doing.
Right.
How do you get your people to think the way you think so that they will do what you want them to do?
Well, honestly, that's a great question, but I'll tell you, it gets back to that. You tend to hire in your, have y'all ever noticed how you replicate yourself in your hiring? It's the good news, bad news. Every once in a while, you need to find the way that you complement your weaknesses as well as replicate your strengths. But one of the things I would say, Gwen, as you ask that question, part of it is the clarity, to have that clarity of here are our visions, here's our vision, here are our values, and the more certainty you have around that, the deeper you have that in your organization, the more consistently that message is sent out. Every one of our branch folks has on their desk, we have 9 branch locations, as we noted, and some of the smartest and best people in our company are those people who are the front line, who, when my customers talk about the bank, that banker that they love, they're talking about a person that they see regularly inside of our locations. And those folks have on their desk a little tombstone that is our mission statement and our core values. And that helps them. And then that back to that idea of to serve heroically. If I have a person standing in front of me who has a really clear need, and I've got to think about how I solve their problem, there are many things that will go into the complex decisions that they have to make. But at the heart of it, they're thinking to themselves, I want this person to leave this experience and feel that they have not just been seen and heard, but they have been served in a way that they want to tell somebody about. So I think the answer is that the more ability you have to make certain that people understand your why, the more likely you are to be able to consistently produce an outcome that's consistent with what your hope was, your goal was.
All right, we got a question by Dottie, and I'm gonna repeat your question.
You might have to. Susan.
Hi, Dottie.
Hi, Susan.
How you doing, friend?
Sorry to get back up here. Shifting times
Yes.
make us take a very strange look at our strategic plan.
Mm-hmm.
Most of us are small business owners.
Mm-hmm.
I think you have your board that you go to
Mm-hmm.
and sit down and go, man, the rug is about to turn over on us. For those small businesses, and we all started that way somehow, how would you advise us, especially those now that are being affected by really strange shifting times, besides their banker, who can they put around themselves to help them take a look at this strategic plan and say, you need to pivot? How do we do that in any odd time that's going to come get us?
All right, the question is, in shifting times, who else can we pull under our tent to help us in these making decisions that are critical to the company?
Yeah, well, first of all, I'll say, I said it earlier when I was talking about the people that are inside of your own company. Start with a really deep conversation with the people that are on your team. I tell you that there's somebody out there in your company that's just been waiting to tell you something you need to hear. They've been waiting for you to ask. Usually it's almost like a pressure cooker. Their little steam thing is rising and you're waiting. They're going to explode if somebody doesn't ask them pretty soon to answer that question. So I start with the people that are on your team and serving your immediate customers. So I always tell people, start in your internal team and make sure that you're listening, and you're listening to the things that you want to hear and the things you don't want to hear, because very frequently the people that you love the most inside your company have to tell you the really hard things. I will tell you that your great customers are important advisors, and your customers are stakeholders in your business. They're legitimately, they are giving you the privilege of serving them, but they're also the people who have a unique lens on what you're doing and how you're doing it. So I always tell myself, I frequently, and by the way, my customers are always happy to tell me, unprompted, what I'm doing well and what I'm not doing so well. So I think that's a really important group. But I also think you have people who are fellow small business people, the people that are doing this. And very frequently, my competitors have been part of my advisory team for a long, long time. The people who are my noble competitors, and I have many noble competitors, people that I trust their judgment, and I know that they are smart and capable, and they also have a lens on what I'm doing. So don't fail to ask those people who are there. But also, I've always had the great privilege of having people who know me well and know that they know your strengths and your weaknesses. And let me just be really clear. Many of us who are small business people are stubborn and sort of convinced we might be right and we might be really, really smart.
Can you say that again for the people in the back?
The people way in the back. Yeah. For those of you, I don't know who's talking to me. It's really hard not to have someone available to you who is able to tell you you're wrong. You're wrong. And let me tell you, when you're running a company, I've had a partner for my business partner and I have worked together my entire 46 years, but he's one of my dearest and longest friends. And he is pleased to tell me when I'm wrong. I'm delighted. But I don't know, I tell people all the time, I don't know how you, running a company as a partnership has been one of the secrets to our success. I don't like to tell everybody this, but I promise you, we are a better company because there have been two of us who were able to course correct along the way. So I hope for all of you in your life, you have that equivalent of, and of course I have a spouse who also is delighted to tell me when, well, I'm not right. And children, oh my gosh, how could I have left them out? My children are way smarter than me. Just ask them, they'll tell you. And they have no problem with reminding me of the many opportunities I have to improve. And now I have 13 grandchildren. And the one thing I can say about my grandkids is the oldest is 8, and they all think I'm perfect. So for the record, I wish you all great partners, good team members, good competitors, noble competitors, and then somebody's in your life who are willing to tell you that you're not perfect, as well as somebody who still looks at you and says, you're the greatest.
Last question, Derek Joyce.
Appreciate you again for your time today. So what would be like 3 to 5 elements, like 3 to 5 elements and factors of a metrics that you would use to select a strategic planning organization? So what are the, obviously, cost, experience, but what would you say are 4, 5, 6 things?
Okay, so you're
select out of choosing between 2 or 3 companies.
4 to 5 things you would need to select out of a strategic.
Higher levels, if you're putting a selection metric together to choose who's going to make this plan for you, what would be those elements that need to be a part of that?
Yeah, there's some great companies out there who are really good at strategic planning, but if I were the metrics I would look at, are you looking for who's going to be your advisor, or are you going to look at elements that you want to have in their plan?
Great clarification question. So who will we actually select? So there's 3 companies we're looking at right now.
Okay.
All World Project Management. And so I need to drill that down.
Okay, so I'm going to tell you the things that I would tell you for your strategic advisors. First of all, it's going to vary from business to business, types of business. But I look for, in a consultant on a strategic plan, I look for people who are happy to provide a lot of example of their work, so that you can see, you ask for a redacted copy of somebody's, anyone that's going to be hired to help you with a strategic plan should be delighted to show you their framework and then show you a redacted copy of a plan, so that you have a chance to really analyze whether they are going to understand what you need them to do. I tell people that I ask for references, and if you don't, y'all don't hire somebody to fix your roof, put in a new air conditioner, don't ever go to someone that you don't get a reference for that. So talk to the people that have used them and have that as an experience. We have a requirement in the financial services sector to do a vendor evaluation. So I always ask people for their financial information, or I ask people for information about their company and their performance. They're not always going to hand you, here's my annual report, but many of them will hand you their annual report and let you see how they're performing. But I just want you to think about it. You don't want someone to advise you who is not performing well themselves in their space. So that is a key factor in that whole thing. And then the thing that I think is probably the most important thing is when you visit with people, have y'all ever had that moment where you feel like I get that this person is connecting with me, they understand what I'm trying to achieve, they're a good listener, they're understanding who I am. So there's a test that is also, for me, sometimes it's I feel they understand enough of me and how I operate that they will be a good partner for me. But I also would tell you that people who legitimately do strategic planning, there's usually a pretty deep and rich file that you can look at on the things that they do. And I would do my checklist of how are they going to help me navigate the process and the core components. And if they don't have real clarity about the core components of what you need to be doing and how you need to be doing it, then they're not the right partner for you.
So listen, thank you, Susan.
Oh, thank you all.
And thank you guys. Fantastic. And I'm gonna turn it back over to Miss McKinney.
All right, thank you. Thank you again, Susan.
thank y'all.
Thank you, Independent Bank. Thank you, Wyatt, Tarrant and Combs. Thank you, Society of Entrepreneurs. And we have a winner of a prize. So on Thursday, we will have a mini mixer / reception before Come From Away. I'm going to quickly run over to Michael Detroit, who's with Playhouse on the Square. Can you give us a quick synopsis of Come From Away?
You'll have to come see the show if you want to hear me sing something, and it's going to cost you money to do it. Come From Away is a great show. It came out in 2017 on Broadway. It was nominated for 7 Tony Awards, won one of them. It's about the day after 9/11. Set in a small town of Gander, Newfoundland. It doubled in size from 9,000, almost doubled in size from 9,000 people to 16,000 people overnight. It's about how people do good things and are empathetic towards others and the richness of doing good things for others. And it's exactly the show that you need to see right now. And you can come see me sing too.
Okay, so everyone in the room can register for that event. That's this coming Thursday. And the winner, who is Corey Hayes of C. Hayes Bookkeeping, has won 2 entry tickets to that event. Corey, are you still here? Okay, awesome. So everyone go to our website, register for that event. And we also want you to know that Susan, out of the kindness of her heart and time, on September 9th, she is inviting First Come, First Serve to her office to continue this conversation. So please email me, pmckinney@memphischamber.com, to reserve your spot. Thank you, Susan, for allowing us to come for the Q&A session on September 9th. Thank you all so much for your time, and have a great rest of your day.